My husband's serial cheating led to divorce in a shocking twist. The world shattered the moment my eyes landed on those messages. A slow-motion explosion of disbelief and rage ripping through the carefully constructed facade of my 18-year marriage. It all started with a seemingly innocuous Saturday morning. A cup of coffee. And a peek over my husband's shoulder, a peek that unveiled a web of lies, so intricate it left me gasping for air. A woman who once poured every ounce of her being into building a life with a man I thought I knew, was about to discover that the foundation of my existence was built on sand. At 24, I married a 22-year-old fresh out of school with no job, and we relied on his parents' generosity to live off of them. We were so grateful for the support his parents gave us in letting us have our wedding on their property. But it turned out that money was actually from his own education fund that he was supposed to use for school but never did. The wedding took place at a little camping site in a public park here in town. There's a little green space in the park that overlooks a river that runs through our city. It rained a little bit in the morning, but his parents were there. My parents weren't there because I haven't spoken to them in years. His family was there as well as a few of my aunts and uncles and cousins came. It was a small intimate ceremony. Little did I know, my husband had been unfaithful to me throughout our entire relationship. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. He'd been having an affair with a woman he met on Discord. A pink bunny in a video game he played religiously. The messages I stumbled upon, filled with longing and promises, painted a lurid picture of betrayal. For years after the wedding, we lived with his parents. He didn't get a stable job until 4 years after we were married. He would be gone from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and often worked weekends. I worked the 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and when I came home there'd be dinner ready for me, and the house would be clean and tidy. Honestly, I thought I had it made. On that fateful Saturday, he had a rare day off, and I found him engrossed in his game. He'd often stay up late to play with Pink Bunny, who was in a time zone 2 hours ahead. I didn't mind because we had our time together after work, and I'd unwind with a book before bed. But then, I saw those messages. The explicit declarations of love and desire. Kurt, I managed, my voice barely a whisper. How long? He stammered, attempted to deny. But the truth, once unearthed, was a festering wound. He confessed that Melissa, this Pink Bunny, was an old friend from before we got married. The foundation of our relationship trembled, threatening to collapse entirely. A hollow ache settled in my chest as he begged for forgiveness. I told him to get out. He didn't have the funds at the time to help with the mortgage, and he didn't even have a job when we applied for the mortgage, so we had to ask his parents to co-sign. His parents' reaction was swift and merciless. They called, pleading, berating me to try therapy. His mother even had the audacity to suggest I consider their investment in our relationship, the years of letting us stay in their basement. Sorry, I retorted. The house is in my name. I pay the mortgage. I put down the payment. She doubled down, stating we shouldn't rule out therapy, and that her son is sick with guilt, and he's sorry for what he's done. He's only sorry he got caught. I snapped. That didn't go down well. Then I told her to get out of my apartment before I called the police. She refused on the basis that it's her apartment, which was a laugh. I dared her to show me the documentation. Then she stormed out, and I got a call from him and I didn't answer. I was getting text messages from him telling me that I can't speak to his mother that way, and she's only just looking out for us. The full extent of his depravity unfolded in the following weeks. It wasn't just Melissa. There were strippers, multiple affairs, a sickening pattern of betrayal and deceit. His mom forced him to write me an email detailing everything. He admitted that he had dated Melissa before we were dating, and they had even exchanged explicit photos and videos throughout our relationship and engagement. Even worse, they had met up 5 times after we were married. Fear began to gnaw at me. I went to the bank, had his name removed from the mortgage, and refinanced. The house was finally, irrevocably, mine. His parents arrived, pounding on the door, demanding I leave their house. I laughed, secure in the knowledge that they had no legal right to be there. I threatened to call the cops for trespassing and told them their broke-ass son wouldn't be able to bail them out. The cops showed up anyway, and I showed them the paperwork proving the apartment was in my name. His dad, in a final act of desperation, hurled a parting insult. I understand why my son cheated on a heifer like you. They continued to fight with the cops, and they say they have paperwork too, but I had the last laugh. The police ended up taking them off my property. I changed all my information and secured everything with two-factor authentication. He managed to hack an old, disused high school email account, but it held nothing of value. He even tried to dispute a bill. But I won the case. I filed a restraining order. He was a stranger who was meant to stay a stranger. Then, the universe decided to throw me a curveball, a bizarre, almost unbelievable twist of fate. Weeks after the divorce was finalized, a letter arrived from a lawyer I'd never heard of. It detailed a trust fund, established years ago by my ex-husband's grandparents, intended for him or his spouse. It turns out his grandparents had foreseen the possibility of financial mismanagement. In order for this trust fund to be released, meant either the completion of a significant marriage milestone, like an anniversary, or, interestingly enough, a marital dissolution due to infidelity. The refinancing, the divorce, the infidelity, it all triggered the release of the trust fund. And guess who the beneficiary was? Me. My ex was a wreck during the legal process. Sleep deprived. Defeated. He looked utterly pathetic. I, on the other hand, made sure I looked my absolute best. I had been taking good care of myself, eating healthy and taking spin classes. Once they found out I was getting a significant amount of money, my ex tried to weasel his way back into my life, offering apologies and insincere promises of change. But I wasn't going to fall for his games again. The money arrived. A lump sum that dwarfed anything I had ever imagined. With this newfound wealth, I can finally start a new chapter in my life. Story 2. My wife and I were married for about 4 years before I divorced her. I thought we were madly in love with each other. She was my favorite person, my best friend, and the love of my life. I don't understand how things turned out the way that they did, but I'm trying to work through them as best as I can. When we met, we fell hard and fast for each other. A mutual friend introduced us, and we ended up leaving the party we were at that night together, and we barely spent a day apart since. I've never been able to picture a future with a woman until I met her. She completely changed how I felt about love and relationships. We got married after 2 years of being together, and it was all picture perfect. My wife was always somewhat of a flirt. It bothered me when we were together, but I convinced myself that it was just her being friendly with people. I figured that as long as she was coming home to me at the end of the day, it wasn't that big of a deal. I've dated a lot of women, and I had countless friends always telling me that a woman was hitting on me when I didn't even notice. So when I invited a friend from work over for dinner one night, and my wife saw how she was acting toward me, we had a conversation. My wife told me that the friend from work was obviously into me, and she was nervous about our relationship. I assured her that she was the only woman for me, and that I hadn't even noticed. The woman was flirting with me. We had a long conversation that night about boundaries. I gave her my information, and she looked through my text message exchanges with my coworker, and she found nothing suspicious. She gave me her cell phone information, and I briefly looked at her phone, but I didn't really have anything to look for. There was a point when my wife started spending a lot of time at work after hours. I didn't question it because I knew she was trying to put in the work to get a big promotion. It was extremely competitive, and she needed to have a leg up on some of the people she was competing with. She never wanted to tell me about work when she got home, and I assumed it was because she was stressed and exhausted. She kept doing that for about 3 weeks until she came home furious one evening because she didn't get the promotion. She just kept yelling about how hard she worked and how she was doing things nobody else was doing because she wanted it so badly. She made it seem like it was a boys' club at the office, and the only reason she didn't get the promotion was because she was a woman. I was angry on her behalf. I knew that she was smart and very dedicated to her job, and if they weren't promoting her because she was a woman, that was a huge problem. I saw how upset she was. Several weeks went by, and things started to go back to normal with her. I was working from home one afternoon when I got an Amber Alert notification on my phone. The alert freaked me out, so I swiped it away very quickly to make the sound disappear. However, I can hear the alert going off from somewhere under my bed. I was confused about that. Right away, I got up and started digging through some of the bags and storage containers we kept under there to find out where it was coming from. I found an old tote bag hidden inside a plastic storage container with a cheap cell phone inside. I got rid of the Amber Alert notification and just stared where the phone, was confused about why it was there. My wife and I were on the same phone plan, and I knew that she had an iPhone, So, I was suspicious of the music phone. I assumed it was probably just an old phone of hers. I unlocked it and took a quick look through it to see what was going on with this phone. I could see that it was on silent mode. Aside from a few missed calls from toll call numbers and messages I wouldn't have even known, it was there. One name was frequently called and texted: Chris. I recognized the name right away. Chris was my close friend. We would invite Chris and his wife over for dinner. We went on double dates. They had their first baby on the way and everything. I took a deep breath and I looked through the messages. It was clear they were having an affair. They had been exchanging pictures with each other and talking about what they were going to do with each other the next time they could be alone. Chris told my wife that he was thinking about her when he was sleeping with his wife, and my wife would reply by sending him a picture of her topless, or something like that. They made plans together to both stay late after work and be with each other. I realized that there was never a promotion that my wife was trying to get. She had come up with a very elaborate lie to cover for what she was really doing after work. I completely believed it too. My wife was the woman of my dreams, and I was over the moon to be with her. Then I found out that she was cheating on me. I almost wanted to put the phone back and pretend like I hadn't found anything out, but I know I couldn't do that. How was I supposed to look at her the same way after I know what she had done? I got back to my computer and immediately started looking up some information about divorce. While I was doing that, my wife texted me and told me that she would be staying late at work again, because she needed to prepare for a meeting the next day. I haven't been angry up until that point. I was sad and defeated. But when she lied to me again and I know what was really happening, I was furious. I thought over what I wanted to do for a few minutes before an idea struck me. I called Chris's wife and I asked her if they wanted to come over for dinner that night. She told me it sounded great. I told her we would schedule it for another time and hung up. About 10 minutes later, I texted her and told her that my wife and Chris were both staying late too. I asked her if she was a caring partner and grabbed some takeout and bring it to them together. We met up around 5:30. I know that we would likely be walking into both of them having sex, and I was nervous. Nervous to see it. I started to feel bad that I had involved Chris's wife in all of this. She certainly didn't need to see what was about to happen. Unfortunately, it was too late to go back. There were a couple of cars in the parking lot. One of them I recognized right away was my wife's. Both of us went inside and took the elevator up to the office where our partners were. We could hear the sounds of people having sex. They weren't really making much of an effort to hide what they were doing. I was surprised that his wife immediately dropped the food on the ground and stormed through the office just to see what was happening. I let her lead the way, and she brought us to a small conference room, where both of our partners were completely naked and on the floor having sex. She slammed the door open and walked over to her husband. Chris saw her and started immediately trying to apologize and explain what was happening. My wife immediately stood up and tried to get dressed. I didn't say anything. Instead, I just turned around and walked away. My wife got dressed and followed me out of the office, begging me to stop and listen to her. I stopped and I gave her a moment to try and explain what was happening. She told me that they had been working late at the office one night and it just happened. They were just having sex and that was all there was. She told me that she still loved me more than anything in the world and didn't want to lose me. I didn't want to listen to what she was saying, so I just left. I waited by the car for Chris's wife so we could leave together. She was extremely upset when she got in and was just crying about how he was the one who wanted a baby, and that was how he was going to act after she was pregnant. I felt even worse for her than I did for myself. I finally got home after dropping her off, and I packed a bag for myself to go stay at a hotel. I couldn't stand to be around my wife after that. I contacted a divorce attorney, and we got the paperwork ready to be filed. As soon as it was ready, I gave it to her. She tried as hard as she could to convince me to stay with her and pursue an ethically non-monogamous lifestyle. She told me that would mean I could sleep with other women. Like that was an incentive for me to forgive everything she had done. I didn't want that. I didn't want to be with other women. I wanted to be with my wife, who I thought I loved. We ended up getting divorced and I was awarded our house. I didn't want to live in the house that I shared so many memories with her in. Chris and his wife also divorced. There was a child in the picture, and they had to go through custody battles. But the wife was awarded full custody, plus he had to pay her spousal support and child support. I haven't spoken to my wife since the divorce, so I don't know if she's found another job, or if she is still looking. All I know is that she's not going to be able to use her previous job as a reference, because of how she was terminated. So, Reddit. After 18 years of marriage, discovering serial infidelity, navigating a messy divorce, fending off his toxic parents, and then inheriting a small fortune because of his cheating. Do you think I handled this situation the right way? I had to kick him out after years of him cheating and lying. Cut ties with his family. And now I'm living a much better life without him. The money, of course, is a great perk of all the terrible things that happened, and I am excited to get the fresh start that I deserve. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, opinions, and any advice you might have as I embark on this new chapter.